Okay. So yesterday we started the discussion of various scheduling processes, various scheduling strategies, the algorithms. In that, we till now we have discussed two strategies: FCFS, that is first come first serve, and round robin. And the third one we just started, that is shortest process next. Now, what is shortest process next? It is one kind of non-preemptive policy where process with shortest expected processing time is selected next. Now, the interesting thing is here for every process that you have in your system, you need to expect, you need to estimate what would be the time required for this process. In fact, in case of FCFS and round robin, where this service time is given, which is nothing but the expected service time, right? Suppose in FCFS and round robin, if that time is not there, can we still perform FCFS or round robin? Suppose this service time which is given to us in our example, that is for our that is for us, so that we can find out okay when it completes, and accordingly we find out the turnaround time and everything. Just assume that if in FCFS and round robin, if estimated service time for that process is not there, can we still perform FCFS and round robin? What do you say? I hope you're getting my point. There is some problem. Just assume this. Let's say in FCFS or in round robin, this service time is not given. Can we still perform FCFS and round robin on this?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yes, because service time is for our content. I mean, it is for our reference that okay when it is going to end, and accordingly we can find this part, right? And we can find out what is the turnaround time and everything. But still, just to perform, just to apply FCFS strategy or round robin strategy, okay, we don't require it, right? We don't require that. Why? Because in FCFS, what we do, whichever process comes first, so based on arrival time, we simply schedule them. And in round robin, whichever processes are there, every process get the same amount of time, turn by turn. So there is no need for this service time. If even if it is not there, still we can apply FCFS and round robin. But that is not the case here. In case of shortest process next, the selection function itself depends on the service time. The selection function itself depends on the service time. So process with shortest expected time processing time is selected next. And in this case, it favors shortest processes. That is the term itself, shortest process next. So it favors shortest processes. So shortest process jumps ahead of longer processes. So till now we have seen that in case of FCFS and round robin, mainly they are favoring longer processes. Actually, FCFS favors longer processes and round robin favors CPU bound processes rather than IO bound processes. Here, in this case, shortest process next itself favors shorter processes. And it is another method to reduce bias in favor of long processes, which is inherent in FCFS. So that is the point. So this is the example. SPN example. Let us understand this example. Which process will execute first? A. Because arrival time of A is 0. So at time 0, there is no other process, only A process. So that will execute at time 0. Then at time B, at time 2, B comes. So now there are two processes at time 2. Okay. But this is non-preemptive version. Shortest process next is a non-preemptive version. So once process is scheduled or it is executing, it will execute till it completes or it blocks itself. But now in our example, we are not considering any blocking state. We consider only CPU processing. Okay. So in this case, at time 2, even if B comes, still there is no change and A continue to run. So at time 3 only, when A completes, at time 3, there is only one process in the queue, and that is B. So it will be executed. It will be given a chance to execute. So again, this is non-preemptive. As soon as it starts executing, it will complete after 6 units of time. So tell me when next schedule will be, when next time dispatcher will be dispatching new process at time 9. And at time 9, how many processes you have? At time 9, how many processes you have? 3 processes. That is, in this fashion, they have come in this order. C came first, then D, and then E. But at time 9, out of these 3 processes, which will be executed? E, because it has shortest process. It has shortest service time. So E will be executing next. Then next time, when the new schedule, when the dispatcher will execute and select the new process, what is that time? What is next time? 11. So at 11, C will be scheduled, because C has lesser service time required among C and D. So C will be executed next. And next time when D will be executed? 15, correct. And at 20, it will be completed. So this is our SPN. And now if you find all these terms, turnaround time and normalized turnaround time, of course, this is low. This mean values as well as this value for each processes, they are comparatively low when you compare it with the round robin and FCFS, right? They are comparatively low. So SPN, you can see that they are favoring here shorter processes. E completed before C and D, okay, because it was a shorter process, so it was preferred over C and D. But then what is the issue with SPN? As we just discussed, SPN cannot work if you can't estimate the service time that is required. Okay, so difficulty associated with SPN is the need to know or estimate required processing time for each process. And if we again compare this requirement, if we talk about this requirement in 2 different types of systems, in batch processing system where jobs are batch jobs, and interactive processes where in time sharing system mostly we have interactive processes. So in case of batch jobs, while submitting job, programmer can also submit estimated time. That is how it can be done. But in that case, if estimated time for that process is not correct, it is quite possible that OS may abort that process. Okay, so that is a difficulty, that you need to estimate time very well. In case of interactive processes, how can it be estimated? So for that, running average can be maintained for each process, and accordingly this service time can be maintained. And another approach is to gather the statistics. If the same job runs frequently, in the same process runs frequently, you can gather that statistics, how much time it took last time and before that, and you just combine that and calculate some average value, and you can use that. So these are different ways to estimate service time. But again, let me tell you one thing, this is not practical stuff. SPN is not practical, because it is not possible, especially in case of interactive processes, it is very difficult to estimate expected service time. Okay, that is difficult. But if we consider this theoretical framework, this SPN is one theoretical framework, may not be implemented, may not be used practically, but this idea, the SPN idea, if we consider this idea, this theoretical framework, the another problem with this SPN is possibility of starvation for longer processes. Do you see this statement? Do you understand the meaning of this statement? Why you think that there is a possibility of starvation for longer processes if you use SPN policy? What do you think? Why it is possible? Yes, can anyone answer this question? Can you justify this statement? Possibility of starvation of longer processes if you use SPN. Anyone?
Yes, sir. So if shorter processes will keep coming in, then they will
Exactly.
be
If shorter processes
executed.
keep coming in the system, longer processes has to wait, and it is possible that if there is a continuous flow of shorter processes, longer process will never get a chance to execute and it will starve. So again, this is the same example. I mean, the same, what do you say? These are the same figures that I am giving you to solve with the help of SPN. Okay. So these are the two exercises. Okay. How many of you have done these two exercises for FCFS and RR? In fact, I have given you a different exercise for RR also. Have you done that exercise? Has anyone done that exercise, or you are just come here in this lecture, listen to it and forget about everything? Okay. So I assume there is no one who has done this exercise. Fine. Today I'll give you some idea what kind of questions based on this concept are asked in GATE exam. And there is one comparison between these three policies that we just discussed: FCFS, RR, and SPN. Maybe this we will discuss at the end. Fine. We will discuss. Okay, let me go through very quickly. What is selection function in case of FCFS? Maximum waiting time. The process which is waiting since long. It means it is first come, first serve. Round robin, there is no selection function. Actually, it is a constant function. Whichever process is there at the front end, just get it there. And whenever it needs to pause, you will add that process at the rear end of the queue. So it is a normal constant function. And in case of SPN, what is the selection function? Minimum service time. Minimum service time is the selection function. What is the decision mode in FCFS? It is non-preemptive. Round robin, it is preemptive. Why it is preemptive? Because even if process can run, but after that amount of time is over, that quantum is over, it has to be preempted. So it is preemptive at time quantum. And SPN is non-preemptive. Throughput, not emphasized much on this. May be low if quantum is too small. What is throughput? Okay, we haven't come across this term, I guess. What is throughput? Can anyone tell me what is throughput? In this CPU scheduling, what do you mean by throughput? So in general, throughput is nothing but the rate of job completions. Throughput is nothing but rate of job completion. So in this case, what do you think? What is throughput? Exactly. Number of processes completed. Number of processes completed per time unit. That is throughput. Now, in case of FCFS, it is not emphasized. Okay. And again, this throughput, it depends. In case of FCFS, it depends what kind of processes are coming to the your queue, your ready queue. Okay, so it depends all on that. But in case of round robin, this throughput is again low if quantum is too small. If quantum is too small, not many processes can be completed per time unit because they have to come again and again. Okay, whereas in case of SPN, throughput can be high. Why? Because at least it favors shorter processes. As it favors shorter processes, number of processes which can be completed within given amount of time, that is definitely going to increase. So I hope you understand this throughput idea, comparison of throughput in these three terms, in these three policies. Okay, then comes response time. And response time is like when process admitted in the system and it gets first chance to execute. That is response time. So in FCFS, it may be high, especially if there is a large variance in the process execution times. Okay. So in a case of FCFS, because it is first come first serve, so this response time can be high. Time can be high. It means it is not a good sign. High response time is not a good idea, right? User wants less response time. And that is the problem with FCFS. Because in FCFS, if let's say initially the processes which are coming in the system, they are longer processes. Okay. So they are going to take so much time so that later on processes which are admitted in the system, their response time will increase. And that is not a good sign. So in FCFS, response time is also very high. Round robin provides very good response time, especially for short processes, right? And in SPN, it again provides good response time for short processes because it favors shorter processes. Overhead in FCFS minimum because you need not to do much process switching. Okay, whichever process is scheduled, that's fine. Okay, once it is scheduled, you need not to do process switch again and again, right? Unless it is completed, you need not to switch the process. So it is minimum. In round robin, it is actually what do you say, debatable whether it is minimum or maximum. Why? Because it depends on quantum time. It depends on, actually this is some problem, I guess. This is swapped. These things are swapped. Okay, again, these are very subjective terms. When we write it here, we are comparing only these three to each other. Okay, so round robin actually overhead can be high if quantum time is very small, because if quantum time is very small, very quickly you need to switch the processes. So I guess I need to change this. It can be high in case of round robin, whereas in case of SPN, it is somewhere between these two values. Why? Because in SPN, what we do, again, it is non-preemptive, first of all. So when it is non-preemptive, once process is scheduled, it need not to switch until unless it is completed or blocked. So that overhead is reduced, but at the same time, for every process, you need to maintain that service time required. Okay. So in that terms, the overhead of SPN is somewhere between overhead of FCFS and round robin. This is actually not true value. This should be high and this should be minimum, you can say, because again, it is non-preemptive. Are you getting my point? There is some mistake in the book. I have taken this figure from the book. Yes, are you getting this? Do you understand this difference here? Come on, guys. Wake up, guys. I think you people are still sleeping. Okay, fine. Yes, that is what I am telling you. Someone is telling me that calculated the estimated service time is overhead, right? That is why I am telling you, when you compare these three policies, the overhead for SPN is somewhere in between FCFS and round robin. In round robin, it can be high if quantum time is low, quantum time is small, multiple process switching need to be done. So overhead will be increased in case of round robin. So it is high here. Here it is minimum. And in case of SPN, it is somewhere in between these two. That is what I am talking about. I guess you got my point. Okay. Now, effect on processes. What is the effect on processes of these three strategies? So we know that FCFS favors longer processes and penalizes the shorter processes. It also penalizes IO bound processes. That is what we discuss. In round robin, there is no much such problem, but it is a fair treatment because everyone gets the same time. And here SPN is just opposite to FCFS. SPN penalizes longer processes and it favors shorter processes. So that is the effect on different types of processes under these three strategies. And starvation in FCFS, no starvation, because who comes first gets chance first. So it is FCFS. In round robin, there is no starvation because everyone gets the chance one by one. But in case of SPN, starvation is possible. So I hope you are getting this comparison, except this thing which need to be changed. This thing need to be changed. Okay. Then there is another process, another strategy called shortest remaining time. And this is nothing but same as SPN. The only difference is this is preemptive version. This is preemptive version. Okay. Preemptive version of SPN. SPN is non-preemptive. This is preemptive. Now, what is this? It's a preemptive version of shortest process next policy and preemption on arrival. So let's say some process is executing right now and new process comes. And if that new process has less service time required, okay, it is going to preempt the OS is going to preempt the currently running process, put it in the ready queue, and that newly admitted process which has less required time, that will be given a chance to execute. So it is preemptive, and preemption happens at the on arrival also. On arrival also. I'll show you one thing, one example that we'll discuss. So the process with shortest remaining processing time is selected. Now this is interesting. It is not shortest process next. It is not based on the shortest service time. No, it is based on the shortest remaining processing time. So if some process requires 5 time unit to be completed, but at this moment it has already completed 3 time unit, it has executed for 3 time unit and only required 2 more time unit. So that is considered the future required time unit, okay, to complete that process. And it must estimate again it depends on the service time. So must estimate processing time and choose the shortest. So let us see the example. The same example. Okay, at time 0, how many processes you have? 3. At time 0, you have 3 processes. How many processes you have at time 0? Only 1. That is A. So that will be given a chance. That will be given a chance. Okay. Now at time 1, how many processes are there? Still 1, only A. So at time 1 also A will be executing. At time 2, now how many processes you have in the system? 2. A and B. Out of this A and B, which has shortest remaining time out of A and B? A, because A needs only 1 more time unit, whereas B requires 6 time unit. So at time 2, though B has entered, but A requires 1 more time unit and B requires 6 time units. So A will continue. Okay. Then at time 3, there is only 1 process. At time 3, when A completes, there is only 1 process B in the system. So it will start executing. So it starts executing. Okay. Then at time 4, C enters. At time 4, C enters. Now tell me, at time 4, there are 2 processes, B and C. Which process will be executed at time 4? C, because C has only 4 time units required, whereas at time 4, B has only executed 1 time unit and it requires 5 more. So at time 4, B has requirement of 5, C has 4. So C will be executed at time 4. Okay, at time 4, C will be executed. Now next time, at time 5, still C continue? Still C continue at time 5? Because now at time 5, C requires 3 and B requires 5. So C requirement of C is still small. So at time 5, C will continue. At time 6, C will still continue because it requires only 2. I hope you are getting this. At time 6, C requires 2 more units because C started at time 4 and at time 6, it has already executed 2 time units. So it requires 2 more. B still requires 5 and D, which has entered, it also requires 5. So C will continue again for next 2 time unit. C will continue and it will be completed. So at time 8, now at time 8, how many processes you have in your system, in your ready queue? 3. Which are those? E, D, and B. Okay, correct. E, D, and B. And which will execute next at time 8? E, because E requires only 2 time unit. So E will execute. After 2 time unit, so at time equal to 10, now you have 2 processes, D and B, and both require same amount of time. So you can use any tiebreaker here. You can use any tiebreaker, and the simplest tiebreaker is FCFS. Whichever process entered first, that should be given a first chance. So B will be executing. So for next 5 units, B will be executing, and then after that, next 5 units, D will be executing. Are you getting this? So here tiebreaker which is used is FCFS. B entered first, so it should be given first chance. It's a tiebreaker. So this is SRT, shortest remaining time next, which is preemptive version of SPM. Okay, so these are the calculations. In fact, SRT has less values for this, I guess. Let us check it for SPN. Yeah, this is 1.84, this is 7.60. Whereas here it is 7.20 and 1.59. So less value compared to SPN. Compared to SPN, this again has lesser values, and that is a good sign. That is and these are same exercises that you can do for SRT also. One more strategy, that is highest response ratio next. Okay. Now, to reduce the delay experienced by a process, we have seen that normalized TAT, turnaround time, should be minimized. Okay. To reduce the delay which is experienced by a process, if you want to reduce that, what you should minimize? You should minimize which quantity? You should minimize this quantity, normalized TAT. If this is low, it means the reduced experience by each process is reduced. Now, so for all processes on average, our response time is nothing but W plus S divided by S. W plus S divided by S, and this is nothing but TAT actually. Sorry, normalized TAT. I hope you remember the formula. Okay, the formula is same as normalized TAT. So this is W plus S divided by S, where R is a response ratio, W is a time spent waiting for processor, and expected service time. So what happens in this HRRN strategy? So when current process completes or blocks, see, when current process completes or blocks, choose next process with the greatest ratio. With the greatest ratio. Okay. Now, from this, you can understand that it is non-preemptive version. This is non-preemptive policy because dispatcher is not going to preempt currently running process until unless it completes or blocks itself. Then only it will choose the next process. But when it chooses the next process to be scheduled, at that time it will give more weightage to those processes whose ratio is very high. Whose ratio is very high. And what it tries to do, because it tries to minimize this average value of normalized TAT, so it needs to consider those processes who has already spent much amount of time or who has lesser service time. So that we will see here. What is the effect on processes of this strategy? So as, okay, see, one thing. This HRRN policy, it favors shorter processes. Can you tell me why? HRRN favors shorter processes. Can you tell me why? Long service time to high ratio. Low service time, yes. If shorter process is there, this expected service time is low. And if denominator is low, ratio will increase. And HRRN selects those processes which has high value for this ratio, right? So it favors shorter processes. Okay. Okay. One more thing that it also favors those processes which has waited so long, which has waited for a long time in the system. That process is also favored because this is high and these two are the same value. So this is, if this is high, then ratio will be high. So when waiting time is higher normally, for which processes waiting time is higher normally? Because this ratio favors shorter processes, HRRN favors shorter processes. So for longer processes or IO bound processes, correct? For longer processes or IO bound processes where waiting time has already crossed certain limit, then those processes will also be favored. So longer process will eventually execute as aging without service increasing ratio. Okay, because of large numerator. So you can see that this HRRN policy, it is going to balance. It is going to balance out all type of processes. It is going to give balanced distribution of the processor time among all type of processes. That is the idea of HRRN, so that delay can be reduced. So let us understand with example, the same example again. So at time 0, there is only one process. Again, this is non-preemptive. Remember that this is non-preemptive. So at time 0, there is only one process. It will execute. Okay. Then at time 3, because it is non-preemptive, so if A is scheduled, it will complete at time 3, and then B is the only process at time 3, so it will execute. Then at time 9, okay, so B will be completed at time 9, and there are 3 processes, but which has, okay, what are the ratio values for each of this? So these are the ratio values. You can find out this. Let us take one example of E. Suppose E entered at 8. E entered at 8, and this is time 9. So waiting time is 1 for E. Waiting time for E is 1. And what is service time? 2. So 1 plus 2 divided by 2. That is 1 plus 2 is 3 divided by 2. That is 1.5. So ratio for E is 1.5. Are you getting this calculation? For C, it entered at 4 and this is 9. So 5 is the waiting time for C currently. Required service time is 4. So 5 plus 4, 9. 9 by 4. 9 by 4, that is 2.25. So I hope you are getting this calculation. So based on this ratio value, whichever process has highest ratio, that will be selected next. That will be selected next. So which process will be selected next? C will be selected next. Exactly. So C will be selected next, and then it will complete at 13, because 9 plus 4, 13. Then there are 2 processes. Again, you need to find out the ratio at this moment. At this moment, you need to find out the ratio. An interesting thing you can see here, at time 9, D has higher ratio than E. D has higher ratio than E at time 9, but at time 13, E has a higher ratio than D. And this is why, because shorter processes are favored. You can see that shorter processes are favored. E is a shorter than D, and it is favored because service time is in the denominator. So it increases the ratio. And at this moment, now E will be executed. So E will be executed for 2 time unit, and at time 15, D is the only process, so that will be executed, and at time 20, it will be over. Are you getting? Yes, are you getting this? And now if you calculate this mean value, but this has higher mean value than SPN and SRT. You can see that higher mean value, right? Or from when you compare it with the SPN and SRT, it has higher, but it is somewhere in between. Okay. For FCFS, maybe it was higher than this. Okay. But again, for HRRN also, to use HRRN policy, what is required? What is required? Service time. Arrival time, fine. That we can note down. But service time is difficult to estimate. Yes, you need to estimate service time. So the three strategies that we just discussed today, SPN, SRT, and HRRN, all three, they are dependent on service time. The selection of the process based on service time, some function of the service time, right? And these are the same exercise again. And there is some comparison. Again, these three are compared, SPN, SRT, and HRRN. So in HP, okay, someone is asking, what if we use lowest response ratio? That will be fast, right? Okay, in which sense you say it is fast? In which sense you think that it is fast? How come? See, if you use lowest ratio, it means you are favoring longer processes. It means you are favoring longer processes. And do you think that in longer processes, your mean waiting time and mean turnaround time and everything will be reduced? No, right? It is not possible. Fine. So selection function in case of SPN, it is minimum of service time. In case of SRT, it is minimum of service time minus execution time. It means whatever is left, whatever time is left to complete this process, that is S minus E. E is the time which is for which process has executed on the processor, and S is the original service time. So S minus E is the remaining time. And in case of HRRN, maximum of W plus S divided by S. Longest ratio, right? Or the highest ratio. Then this decision mode. SPN is non-preemptive, SRT is preemptive, even at arrival, and HRRN is non-preemptive. Throughput is high. All of this will give high throughput because ultimately they all are favoring shorter processes. So throughput will be high definitely. Number of processes completed per time unit will be high. Response time, it provides good response time for short processes. Same thing for here and that. So response time is again good for all of this because they all dependent on the service time. Overhead can be high in all these cases. Why? Because you need to manage the service time. You need to estimate and manage the service time. So that is why this throughput can be high. And especially in case of SRT, it is preemptive. So more overhead will be added for process switching. Effect on processes, SPN and SRT both are penalizing longer processes. They are completely favoring shorter processes, SPN and SRT. But HRRN, I just told you, it's a good balance between shorter and longer processes because it uses response value where shorter processes will be favored because it is in the denominator, service time, and longer processes will be favored eventually because it is based on waiting time also. So it's a good balance. And it is not favoring any one type of process. It is maintaining a good balance. And starvation is possible in these two cases, but here it is not possible because it considers both type of processes. That's why no starvation, but here starvation is possible. Are you getting this comparison? Yes, are you getting this comparison? Fine. Then one more strategy, feedback scheduling. Now, just assume that length of process is not known. Length of the process is service time. If length of the process is not known, you can't use SPN, SRT or HRRN, which is giving a better performance compared to FCFS and round robin, compared to those, right? But this cannot be used. Good question. Someone asked that, does HRRN have any drawback except we have to know the length of process? If you really think, if you really see that HRRN theoretically, it is the best one theoretically. But then practically, can you estimate the process time, length of the process? No, it is not possible. It is really difficult. Okay. HRRN, mostly it is theoretical idea, not possible to use practically in all kind of operating systems, especially not possible in general purpose operating system, in interactive, where processes are interactive. You cannot estimate what time will be there. And even if you estimate, your estimate may not be correct, right? So of course, HRRN stands out among all this, and it is a very good idea to balance out everything. But then again, it is not practical. That's the point. In fact, again, you can't say that HRRN is best strategy if service time is given, because if you compare, again, if you compare these things, if you compare these values with SPN and SRT, average value are better in case of SPN and SRT than HRRN. But this HRRN provides better balance for all type of process. So this is actually, if you use measurable performance, then SRT is better than HRRN. If you compare it with SRT, it is better. See, it is better, SRT, measurable performance. But when it comes to non-measurable performance, like, you know, fair treatment or satisfaction and all those stuff, because in case of HRRN, what happens? In case of HRRN, it balances the longer processes and shorter processes both. So in that terms, non-measurable performances, if you compare, HRRN is better, definitely. Does that answer your question? Okay. Now let me tell you one thing. Till now we have discussed 5 policies: FCFS, RR, HRRN, SPN, and SRT. None of them is directly used in actual real world operating system. None of them is used. There is some hybrid version and some complex scheduling algorithms are used. In fact, in Linux, since kernel version 2.6, CFS is used, completely fair scheduling, which is based on fair scheduling, which was used in traditional Unix. So completely fair scheduling is used. Okay, sorry, there is a power cut right now. So I restart this and I reconnected using my mobile data. Fine. So what we were discussing, I guess recording is still on, right? Recording is going on. Fine. So fine, we were discussing that in current Linux versions, CFS is used, that is completely fair scheduling, which is the idea based on fair scheduling used in the traditional Linux, traditional Unix. So if time will be there, and if if it was possible, I'll discuss that strategy also. It is also given That fair scheduling is also given in your book. If you are interested, you can read that. I'm not sure whether I am going to consider that or not. Okay. Is that fine? Are you getting up to this point? So till now we have discussed 5 strategies: FCFS, RR, SPN, SRT, and HRRN. Next is feedback scheduling. So we discussed that SPN, SRT, and HRRN can't be used if you don't know the length of the process or the service time. And to avoid the penalty to short processes, longer processes should be penalized. Okay. Now we have seen that even SPN, SRT, and HRRN, they are favoring completely shorter processes, especially SPN and SRT. Okay. But in case if they cannot be used, SPN, SRT, and HRRN, if they can't be used, what we are left with, what we have discussed, FCFS and RR. But mainly they are favoring longer processes. So if you want to avoid that penalty on shorter processes, you need to also penalize longer processes so that shorter processes, they are not getting delayed. That is the point. So now, if we can't get length of the process or we can't estimate the service time, at least we can, if we can't focus on time remaining, we can focus on time spent in execution so far, and that is very well possible. If you can't estimate how much time is required by this particular process, or if you can't estimate how much time is still left for this process to be completed, if that is not possible, but what is possible, you can always measure how much time any process has executed on the processor. You can measure, and that is the essence of feedback scheduling. So what is feedback scheduling? A very good and simple idea. It penalizes jobs that have been running longer. So first of all, it is going to penalize longer running jobs so that shorter processes need not to be delayed, or it need not to wait for a long time. If you don't know remaining time, process needs to execute. Okay, in this case, you don't know remaining time, that process needs to execute. And preemption on time quantum with priority. Now let us understand what is this feedback scheduling. So you can see that you have multiple queues, multiple ready queues. Okay. So whenever new process is admitted, it is admitted here at this point. It will be admitted in the RQ0, and this process will be executed. Once the process is executed from this queue, and if it is going to be preempted, because this is like based on time quantum, like round robin. Okay, it is round robin kind of stuff. This feedback scheduling, internally it is using round robin idea. Every process will get some amount of time, some quantum time, right? Time quantum. So after that time quantum, that process has executed. Now it will be preempted, but it won't be joining this queue again. It will be joining lower queue. It will be joining lower queue. Okay. And this queue has higher priority than its lower queue. So what we are trying to do here, if process which has executed for some amount of time and it still requires more time, then its priority will be lowered down, because it will be appended here in the lower queue. So these are the priority based queues actually. This is having highest priority, this is having lower priority, this is having lower priority, and further. Okay. So what is happening? Based on the execution time which is used by some process, so for how much time some process has executed, accordingly its priority will be reduced. So if some process has executed for more amount of time, its priority is going to be reduced by putting that process in the lower queue. And within each queue there is round robin. So once this queue is empty, then process will be executed from this queue. So what is the feedback scheduling? When a process enters, it is placed in RQ0. It is placed in RQ0 whenever new process admits. When preempted for the first time, why preempted? Because it is round robin. Time quantum is allotted. So when preempted for the first time, it is moved to the RQ1. Simple. So when it is preempted for the first time, it will move here to RQ1. every subsequent preemption demotes the process to next lower priority queue. Simple. So every subsequent preemption will demote it to the lower priority queue. Does this make sense? Are you getting this idea of feedback scheduling? Of course, we will analyze that. What is the effect of this? And what are the different variants of this feedback queue? We will see that. But are you getting the basic idea of feedback scheduling? Okay. Now, what happens in feedback scheduling? Short processes will complete quickly without moving to very low level. Do you agree with this statement? Short processes, they will complete quickly without moving to very low level queues because they require short amount of time. Yes, we will see that. There is a possibility of starvation. We will see that problem also. Long process will keep moving downward. Simple. So longer process will keep moving downward and you are penalizing longer processes by moving them in the lower priority queue. Okay. The processes will be treated according to FCFS in all queues except lowest queue. Now, this is something that you need to understand. Within each queue, processes will be treated as per FCFS. Okay, except this last queue, lowest priority queue. Here it is round robin actually. Here it is round robin. Let us understand that. Lowest queue treats the processes according to round robin, as processes can't go lower further. So what it says, see, when process is in this queue, it will be when it will be executed here based on FCFS. Then after, if it is preempted, if it is completed, fine, it will be done. But if it is preempted, it means it has still some time required to complete it. It will be joining this queue. From here, if it will be preempted, it will be joining lower queue. So it will never come back here. Any process which has which has taken from this queue and executed, it will never come back here. So it is like FCFS from higher priority to lower priority queue. So within every queue, it is FCFS, but except the lowest queue because after once you have reached to this lowest queue, there is no further queue. So if process which is executed, which is taken from this lowest queue and executed for some amount of time, and still it requires some more amount of time, where it should join? It will join the lowest priority queue. So in that sense, it is round robin. In that sense, it is round robin for lowest queue, and for all other queue, it is FCFS. Are you getting this? Yes, guys, are you getting this? So this is one example. There are variations exist for feedback strategy. We will see those variations. But what is the simple version of this feedback strategy? So simple version preempts periodically, similar to round robin. Okay, every process will get some amount of time and then it will be preempted. So here we have decided that quantum is 1, suppose, and this is the same example. Quantum is 1 and this is the same example. So let us understand this. These are the time quantums starting at 0. So there is only one process at time 0. If you see this, at time 0, there is only one process A. So A will be there in ready queue 0 and it will be executed. It is there in ready queue 0. So read means it is the next process to be executed. So at time 0, A will be executing. So between 0 and 1, A will be executing. At 1, again, there is no other process. So it will continue. Okay, because still it is, running. Still it is running. Then B. At time 2, B comes. Now there are two processes. Okay, so you can see that B will join the ready queue 0. So A will be preempted now. A will be preempted because see why here it was executed for 2 time unit. Why it was executed here for 2 time unit? Because there was no other process. That's why it was given the second time unit also. Otherwise, one quantum is given to every process. So in the next quantum, once this quantum is over, at the next quantum, B is also there. And it is a newly admitted process which is in the ready queue 0. So that's why A which was running, the process A which was running here, now it will join RQ1. It will join lower priority queue. Okay, so it will join RQ1 and B is in ready queue 0. So it will get a chance, one time unit. Okay, at time unit 3, now what happens? B is joining RQ1. There is no process here. So it is joining here RQ1. Fine. And A will get a next chance because A there is the first process in RQ1. So A will get a next chance. A will complete at this point. A will complete between 3 and 4. A will complete because it required only 3 time units. So A is completed and at time 4 C enters and it enters in the RQ0. So it will be given first chance. So it will be executed here and then it will be joining this. Then it will be joining RQ1. At time 5, there are only 2 processes which are there in RQ1. They are in RQ1. So there is no process in RQ0 at time 5. So B will be executed first. It will be given 1 time unit. Okay, so how many time units B has executed? 1 and 2, which requires 6 actually. It requires 6. But then B, when it is executed at time unit 5, it will be joining RQ2. And here at time unit 6, actually D comes. So D will get a next chance. And it will join here after C. Now C will get a next chance because it is first in RQ1 and there is no process in RQ0. So C will get a next chance. And at 7, C will be executing between 7 and 8. And at 8, again E comes and C is joining here. From RQ1, it will be joining RQ2. So this is the current situation at 8. This is the current situation at 8. Why parallelly? There is a single processor. It is not parallelly. There is a single processor. Okay, you need to understand this thing. Though we are showing here multiple processor, no, they are not multi. We are discussing. Remember one thing, we are discussing everything in the context of single processor. If it is in parallel, why we need to do all this stuff? Why can't we execute all processes parallelly if there are multiple processors, right? So all this discussion is for a single processor. So though it is showing here multiple processor, no, they are the single processor. I hope you are getting this. Pujan? Okay. So be clear that everything is happening on a single processor. So this is how it will continue and it will be joining the next queue. So at 10, this is the situation. Then at 11, B will be executed and joining RQ3. At 12, C will be executed and joining RQ3. At 13, D will be executing and joining R. So this is FCFS at all these queues. Let's say 5th is the final queue here. So this is how it is going to work. This is how it is going to work. So B will be completed at the end. B will be completed at the end. And do you know why B is completed at the end? Why it is the last process to be completed? Why it is the last process to be completed? Why B is the last? Because it's the longest process. It is the longest process. So longer processes are penalized this way. Longer processes are penalized this way. And if you now see this Gantt chart, you can see that how they are executed. And it is because quantum was only 1. That is why this happens. The quantum was only once. That is why this happened. And these are the values. And you can see turnaround time is also high. This is also high, right? But again, this is going to balancing. This is going to balance out some. And it also depends on Q value. It also depends on Q value. Now, in this case, if we use this kind of idea with Q equal to 1 at every feedback queue, at every ready queue, if we use Q equal to 1, the turnaround time for longer processes can stretch out alarmingly. See, what is turnaround time for B now? See, 3. That is normalized. Sorry, turnaround time is 18. For B, it is 18. Okay. And this is very high turnaround time because it entered at 3, completed at 20. Sorry, it entered at 2, completed at 20. So turnaround time is very high when you compare it with any other process, right? So for longer processes, even D and D is also longer one compared to other processes because this requires 6 time unit, this requires 5 time units. C is also required 4 time unit. So you can see turnaround time for longer processes are stretched. They are increased. And because of that, starvation can occur if new jobs are entering the system frequently. And because of that, starvation can occur for longer processes if new processes keep coming into the system. So someone asked about starvation. Yes, starvation is possible in this. If new processes keeps coming in the ready queue 0, other processes, longer processes, which are there in the lower priority queue, they may be starved. So what is the solution? One solution is you can vary the preemption time according to the queue. Okay. Preemption time is time quantum. How much time quantum should be assigned to the queue? So for different queue, you can have different time quantum. Lower queue processes get more time to execute. So what it says that as, let's say here, this is RQ0. So RQI. So this is I equal to 0. I equal to 0. So at I level I, okay, at I level Q, the time quantum which is provided, it is 2 raised to I. The time quantum which is provided, it is 2 raised to I. So at I equal to 0, 2 raised to I, how much time will be assigned, given to each process? 2 raised to I. So how much time will be given for RQ0 processes? 1, because that is 2 raised to 0. For RQ1, 2. For RQ5, let's say RQ5, 32. So basically, as you lowering the priority of the queue, but in that queue, see why these processes are moving to the lower priority queues? Because they are longer processes. They require more service time. As they require more service time, it is a better idea as they are moving to the lower priority queue, and as they are moving into lower priority queue, they are going to get less chance to execute. But whenever they get chance, they should be given more amount of time. That is the idea. They should be given more amount of time. So you can use Q equal to 2 raised to I at every Q level. And if you use that idea with Q equal to 2 raised to I, if you use that idea, okay, it just completed within these 3 queues, except, I mean, in previous case where Q equal to 1, that was stretched up to the Q number 5. Okay, but here it is completed up to Q equal to 2. And you can see that this is little bit reduced for B. The longest process for B, it is reduced. Instead of 20, it is now completed at 17. Okay, so though there is no much difference here, but at least now it is not penalizing longer processes that hardly. Okay, so you can see here it is, instead of 18, now it is 15. Of course, here little bit increased because it was 12 and 13, which is increased little bit, but still this is reduced. So it is not that harsh on longer processes. It is trying to balance them out. But this is one possible variation in the feedback scheduling. This is one possible variation in feedback scheduling. And still it says that longer processes may still suffer starvation. Can you tell me why? It is still possible that longer process may still suffer starvation. Can you tell me why? If new processes keep coming in the system, still that is possible. Still longer process in the lower priority may starve. So what is the solution? You can promote a process to higher priority queue after spending fixed amount of time in the system. For an example, if some process, which is a longer process, it has already spent some amount of time, some fixed threshold amount of time, then it should not move to the lower priority queue. Rather, it should be moved to the higher priority queue so that you can reduce its waiting time. So that is another possible solution. So these are the different logic. These are different, ideas that you can use to improve the performance, but then you need to measure those performances, okay, thoroughly, and then after you can compare them. But these are some ideas that can be used to improve the existing version. Are you getting up to this point? Yes, guys, are you getting this? So till now we have discussed total 6 strategies. First come, first serve, round robin, shortest process next, shortest remaining time next, HRRN, that is highest response ratio next, and feedback queue. In feedback queue, we discussed different variations of that. And that is also called multi-level feedback. The another name for this feedback scheduling is multi-level feedback, because we have multiple queues. We have multiple queues. So it is also called multi-level feedback. So these are the strict strategies which are discussed in your book also. Okay. Now, there are some other policies. Some other scheduling algorithms are also there, like priority scheduling, which can be non-preemptive and preemptive. Non-preemptive version of priority. See, priority scheduling, I hope you understand. Based on some criteria, you provide the priority to every process. Okay. It can be non-preemptive version and it can be preemptive version. Non-preemptive means what? At that moment, when you need to select any process, whichever process has highest priority, that will be selected. And it will not be preempted until unless it is completed or blocked. And once it is completed or blocked, then only dispatcher will select new process. That is non-preemptive priority scheduling. What is preemptive priority scheduling? In preemptive priority scheduling, let's say some process is running right now, and new process comes and it has higher priority than the currently running process. So in that case, currently running process will be preempted and newly admitted higher priority process will be given a chance. So that is preemptive version. And priority can be based on anything. We don't know, because there are different reasons to, there are different ways to provide priority. Okay. So priority scheduling can be non-preemptive and preemptive. Opposite to shortest process next, there is longest job first, which is opposite to shortest process next, which is also non-preemptive, longest job first. So it is just opposite to that. Then there is longest remaining time first, which is opposite to shortest remaining time. Opposite to SRS, SRT, there is longest remaining time first, and it is preemptive version. So these are some other possible strategies, which we are not going to discuss in length, definitely not in the length, but these are some ideas that these are the possible scheduling algorithm. And all the strategies that we have discussed, actually none of them is used in real world directly. Maybe at least not in general purpose OS. Maybe some of them can be used in RTOS, real-time operating system. Okay, in some cases they can be used, but they are not directly used in any general purpose operating system like Linux, Windows, and whatever we are using. They are using some mixture, some hybrid version of all these algorithms, some hybrid version, some complex version they are using. Are you getting? Yes, guys, are you getting this? Now let me give you some idea, the kind of questions based on this concept which are asked in the GATE exam. So this is one example. Consider 3 processes, process ID 0, 1, and 2, with compute time burst. Now compute time burst means service time. It is not considering any IO burst time. It is focusing only on compute time burst. Okay, that is service time. 2, 4, and 8 respectively. For process 0 it is 2, for process 1 it is 4, and process 2 it is 8. All processes arrive at time 0. They arrive at the same time, let's say. Consider the longest remaining time first scheduling algorithm. I just told you, right? Longest remaining time first scheduling algorithm, which is preemptive. So it is using that idea. In LRTF, if there are ties, if there are some ties, this is preemptive version, right? But if there are some ties, how these ties are broken? By giving priority to the process with the lowest process ID. So if there is a tie between P0 and P1, P0 will be given priority because it is giving priority to the lowest process ID. What would be the average turnaround time? Can you find the answer? So just take a screenshot of this. Just take a screenshot of this. Let me give you one more example. And these are the assignments. This is another assignment. Just take screenshot of this also. This is little interesting. Consider 3 processes all arriving at time 0 with total execution time. Total execution time is 10, 20 and 30 units. Each process spends the first 20% of execution time doing IO. For first 20%, they are doing IO. The next 70%, they are doing computation, that is CPU burst. And the last 10% is again IO burst for every process. So let's say process 0, this one. Total time, 10 time units. Out of 10 time units, first 2 time units, because it is 20%. First 2 time units, it is doing IO. Then next 7 time units, it will be doing CPU processing. And then last 10%, that is 1 time unit, it will be again doing IO. And that is applicable for all these 3 processes. The operating system uses the shortest remaining compute time first. Now see, shortest remaining compute time. How much compute time is left? Not IO time. It is using shortest remaining compute time first scheduling algorithm and schedules a new process either when the running process gets blocked on IO or when the running process finishes its compute burst. So basically this is non-preemptive version. It is non-preemptive version of shortest remaining compute time first. Assume that all IO operations can be overlapped as much as possible. For what percentage of time does the CPU remain idle? And these are the kind of questions which are asked in GATE exam based on this scheduling. So this is what I wanted you to know. So they are not going to give you direct example that the way that I have given you in the previous assignments. Okay, these are the tables and just find out this. No, you need to do something like this. You need to answer something like this. Okay. Again, these questions I have taken from the website, internet, because they are the questions which are asked in previous GATE exams. So if you want, you can get the answer from, okay, you need to take a screenshot of assignment 1. Fine. You can take the screenshot. See, you can find these answers for these questions online. But the point is, you need to understand what it says. You need to understand what is the answer. So what I suggest, please do it first yourself and then go to the internet to find the answer. Otherwise, in next lecture, I'll discuss that. In next lecture, I will discuss this. Clear, everyone? Okay, so let's end this today's session here.